Young historians, your life is consumed by visuals now. It's on your phone, it's on your laptop, it's on your Insta, it's on your TikToks, it's on your, well, you guys don't do Facebook, but you know where I'm going. I mean, we have such a visual life right now, and it's important for us to carefully look at visuals. And I'm going to give you two examples why. In this first example, you're going to see on your screen right here a textbook about geography, and it's about patterns of immigration. And if you look at this textbook, Patterns of Immigration. It's got the largest ancestry reported by country in 2000. Okay, this is a map of the United States. And you'll notice it's got some little sidebars of information here because that's what visuals do. You got to read everything in visuals. It's important. You got to do that. So I'm looking at this, and the first thing I, of course, want to look at is Wisconsin. I see Wisconsin. I see it's almost all light blue. I look down at the legend here, and I see, oh, that means Wisconsin's German. We know that. It's important. We're going to even dig into more than that in class. But then I look at the other aspects of the map, and I look at this little sidebar. And I'm reading this sidebar, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm talking with Taft, and we're talking about this really, really hard history, because it is hard history, about antebellum slavery and the enslavement of African Americans against their will. And then I read this sidebar, and this is a published textbook. And I see that it says the Atlantic slave trade brought millions of workers from Africa to the southern United States to work on agricultural plantations. And I'm thinking, I really don't think that's the best terminology. In fact, I think it's a gross understatement of the evilness of slavery. I really do. And so this actually was seen by a 15-year-old student, an African-American student, and he snapped a picture of it, sent it to his mom. His mom complained about it to the school. The school complained about it to the publishing company. The publishing company had to recall the entire book. I mean, think about that. It went through a whole bunch of editors, and the editors just didn't analyze it very closely. Here's another textbook. This is a map of immigrant groups in 1775. All right. These are the great variety of immigrant groups. Okay. And it's got your Dutch, it's got your English, it's got your Welsh. And if you want to look at it carefully, or actually from the original look, it looks like this in the textbook. All right. It doesn't look like anything kind of crazy, right? But it says the predominant immigrant group. Now, gang, I'm 55 years old. I've been talking about history for the longest time. I would never really say that Africans were an immigrant group at this time. In my mind, in my heart, immigrants were people who moved, either pushed out or pulled to a place, but it was by their will. And here we have Africans who were enslaved and forced to move to the South. They are referred to as immigrant groups. I don't know. I don't think I'm out of line by saying that. This is out of line. And that's why visual analysis is so important. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to think back and think about the visuals that you might have seen in past classes. All of your teachers have used them, but social studies teachers use them all the time. I mean, Mrs. Reimer right now might be using a visual that looks like people living in extreme poverty. It's a map, but we have to be able to analyze maps. Mr. Matera, he might be talking about or have an infographic. Oops, sorry about my little pen there. But an infographic. I love infographics. I wish I could make one. I'm just not that creative. Mr. Markwell used a lot of visuals, and some of them were charts, pie charts, bar charts, line charts, you name it. But those are all the other ways that we can understand information visually. But we have to learn how to analyze visuals. And here's how you do it. Whenever you get a visual, I've got my own steps. You got to look at everything on the map, chart, graph, or diagram because it's there for a reason. You got to look at the title. You got to look for a legend or a key that's going to give you sort of a way to read the visual, if there is one. You should make observations and develop questions so that you can dig more into the visual. Teachers love to give you specific questions, so you can do that. And then you summarize the overall generalizations that you can make from the visual. Or from, what overall is it telling you? And then do you have more questions? I want you to make sure you have this document right here, a visual analysis of antebellum slavery. And you're going to go through 5 different visuals. You're going to look at the components, take a look at the title, find out the legend of the key, make observations and develop questions, answer some specific questions that I might have posed, make some overall generalizations, and then what are some more questions you might have. So if we look at this graph, which is actually on your King Cotton, or this visual, this is on your King Cotton activity that you did. All right, we look at everything. We look at the title. This is all about cotton production. This is King Cotton, and it goes to 1860, the years of King Cotton. Obviously, that's a big deal. Up here, we've got a legend, or a key, about how much cotton was produced, and then the number of enslaved people. And then we've got some more data right here. We're going to see some specific questions. You also notice we have another little visual right over here, which I like. And then you start to make observations, and you start to answer questions. All right? And obviously, what's happening here? Well, in this time period, all right, in 1800, enslavement was not as big as it was, obviously, and then cotton production, the value of it and the number of bales was not that huge. Okay? You've got this, the total crop value, but also you have the auction price for an enslaved person. But then as cotton gets bigger, so does slavery. And as cotton gets bigger, so does slavery. And then as cotton gets bigger, so does slavery. So what's the relationship? We know that as cotton grew and became more and more lucrative and had more and more value, going from $8 million to $248 million, we also know that the cost or the value of an enslaved person went up. And as cotton expanded, it started with 7.1% of our exports, but by 1860, 57.5% of what the United States is selling to other countries is cotton, and that is cotton that is grown on the backs of enslaved people. So that's how you do it. What's your next step? With your partner, you've got 4 different graphics that you're going to look at. You're going to look at one about the Missouri Compromise. These are linked on your handout or your overview for the week or the day. You've got this graph, which I don't like the title because I would say enslaved and enslavers, but I did not make it. But it's got important information on it. This is about the domestic slave trade from 1806 to 1808 to 1865, which you mentioned and referenced in your King Cotton activity. And then this is the concentration of enslaved African Americans. Where was slavery really, really, really popular? For each of those, you're going to go through the steps real quickly. You'll get the hang of it. Shouldn't take you very long. And then once you're done in the next couple days, I want you to go to the link for the visual analysis assessment. This is not hard. It's something I want you to do alone because I have 2 goals for this. Goal number 1, target number 1, and look at the targets that are on your handout. But one of the targets is that you can understand how antebellum slavery grew in the United States during that time period, those antebellum eras, but also that you can read and examine visuals. This is going to be important in your life. The visuals are everywhere. Sound good? So now that you got it, go for it, and good luck. And if you have any questions, let me know when I get back.